Hola a todo el mundo y bienvenido a mi canal. Yo me llamo Siri. Soy una abogada afro-latina licenciada y practicando la ley criminal, pero como todos ustedes, a mí me fascina cuando estamos hablando de casos de crímenes reales. En este video vamos a hablar del caso de Lori Vallow Daybell. Si quieren más video en español, nada más dime allá abajo. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Desiree. I'm a licensed and practicing Afro-Latina criminal attorney who, much like the rest of you, has a severe fascination with true crime cases. Listen, the case we're going to talk about today is absolutely astonishing. I don't think many other cases have taken the media by storm quite like this one has. This woman is known as the Doomsday Cult Bomb, and from my perspective, for good reason. Today, we're going to talk about the case of Lori Vallow Daybell. I actually think, quite frankly, that it's a little disrespectful that people are still calling her Vallow. I would like to refer to her as just Lori Daybell because that's the life she chose for herself, and we will not disrespect Charles any further. Before we get into it, there was literally just so much history and so much background on this case that I honestly didn't feel like I could do it justice without covering it in an at least 3-part series. Sorry if that disappoints you. In this video, we're going to more so talk about the background of Lori, who she was, who the alleged victims of her crimes are, and just go forward. Next episode, we'll probably talk about the trials, and then the final episode, we'll just do a brief recap. But don't hold me to that because I might change it. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Lori Noreen Cox was born on June 26, 1973, in Loma Linda, California. Lori's parents, Janice and Barry Cox, raised all 5 of their children in a strict religious Mormon household. Lori had 2 sisters, a sister named Stacy and a sister named Summer, and similarly, she had 2 brothers, a brother named Adam and a brother named Alex. You'll just pay attention to the name Alex because he'll become very important in this story. I didn't really come from a huge family as far as I don't have a bunch of different siblings, even though my extended family is huge. But it's my understanding that in a family with a lot of siblings, it's not uncommon for some siblings to be closer than others. And Lori's family was absolutely no different. According to Lori's brother Adam, Lori and their sister Stacy were extraordinarily close. Stacy also had a daughter named Melanie Boudreaux, and because Lori was so close to Stacy, she would later become extraordinarily close to Melanie. And Melanie is another person that I want you guys to focus on and pay attention to as we unravel the story of Lori's lies. Lori was unlucky in love, but depending on who you ask, they might consider her lucky. And that's specifically because Lori kept finding men who would marry her. By the time Lori was 28 years old, she had already been married 3 times. I think it's important for the understanding of this story that we go through all of the husbands so you guys just have background as to what exactly happened here. In 1992, when Lori was only 19 years old, she married her first husband, her high school sweetheart, Nelson Yanis. According to Lori's brother Adam, the couple were only married for 6 weeks. The marriage was extraordinarily short-lived, and that marriage did not produce any children. In 1995, when Lori was 22 years old and nearly 3 years following her first marriage, Lori got married for a second time. Lori's second husband was named William Lagoia. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. But through that marriage, Lori and William produced one son, a son named Colby Ryan, who was born in 1996. And pay attention to that. You'll notice that Colby's name is not similar to his father's. It's Ryan. And I'm going to tell you why when we discuss Lori's third marriage. When Lori was 28 years old, and in 2001, she married her third husband, Joseph Anthony Ryan Jr. Although this marriage was also relatively short-lived, Joseph adopted Colby, hence Colby's last name of Ryan versus his biological father's last name. Together, Lori and Joseph had a biological daughter named Tylee Ryan that was born on September 24th of 2002. I stated earlier that Lori's marriage to Joseph was also relatively short-lived, and my research brings me to the fact that they divorced in either 2004 or 2005. I'm putting both dates out there because depending on the article you read, the responses differ. So in essence, they were married for a good 3 or 4 years. Lori and Joseph were in a really bitter divorce, and that bitter divorce also produced a really bitter custody battle. They each wanted custody of Tylee, and they were going to do anything they could to get that. Lori ultimately accused Joseph of sexually assaulting both Tylee and Colby, which ultimately resulted in Joseph losing custody of them. Completely understanding that I wasn't there, I don't know. I'm going to say that all of this is alleged because as far as I'm aware, and as far as the research I've conducted shows, there were no criminal charges pending against Joseph. Not to say that's the only way that something has happened, but to say that he hasn't been convicted of anything. That being said, in 2020, when Colby was a full-blown adult, he did give an interview and he did state that he was, in fact, sexually assaulted by Joseph. Here's where I think things take a really interesting turn. On April 3rd of 2018, 13 or 14 years following her divorce from Joseph, Joseph was found dead in his apartment in Phoenix, Arizona. He was 59 years old at the time. Joseph's neighbor, Roy Zulema, was the one who made the discovery at the time. Roy was walking his puppy and noticed that his puppy was scratching at Joseph's door. When they approached, he saw flies and smelled a strong odor. That in turn made him call the police. When police eventually arrived, they found Joseph on his bed in advanced stages of decomposition. Joseph's death was later ruled natural as a result of a heart attack. 10 days following the discovery of Joseph's body, police called Lori because, unbeknownst to me, you, any of us, I don't know why this happened, Joseph still had her listed as his next of kin even more than a decade following their divorce. Lori explained to officers that the pair were divorced and she had not heard from Joseph in nearly 2 years. According to officers, Lori seemed genuinely concerned at the time. She asked for details, and she further stated that she was going to tell their daughter Tylee about everything that had occurred. And what else I found extraordinarily fascinating is that Joseph had her listed as the beneficiary of his life insurance policy. I wasn't able to find out what the amount was, but Lori, in essence, benefited from Joseph's death. If you're already aware of Lori's story, I'm not giving any spoilers by telling you this. In 2020, following Lori's arrest on unrelated charges, officers decided to reopen the investigation into Joseph's death. Why, you ask? Specifically, because Lori was on a voice recording stating that she wanted to kill Joseph the way Nephi killed. After the investigation, officers ultimately did conclude that Joseph died of natural causes and cleared Lori of any involvement in that. I think that's really suspicious. I'm sorry, I can't bite my tongue anymore. I think that's really suspicious. But you'll get to why I think that's so suspicious later on in this video. So who is Nephi? That's really important to this story. Although I'm not Mormon, I was able to look into it a little bit further to get a better explanation of who he was, just so I can share that with you guys. It's my understanding that Nephi was sent by his family to Jerusalem to get the brass plates. The owner of the brass plates was a powerful man by the name of Laban. Nephi and his brothers offered to buy the brass plates from Laban in exchange for silver, gold, and riches. Laban ultimately refuses and steals the gold, silver, and riches from Nephi and his brothers. Nephi then returns, finds Laban drunk and passed over, and ultimately kills him. Nephi later stated it was the Lord who commanded him to do it. Specifically, he said, the Lord told him, "It is better for one man to perish than for a nation to dwindle and perish in unbelief." Do you remember how I said you should pay attention to the name Alex Cox? Okay, well, that name has resurfaced. Alex is Lori's brother, and according to most media outlets, they describe Alex as Lori's enforcer. And in 2007, following her divorce from Joseph, there was an arrest warrant out for Alex for assaulting Joseph. In essence, Alex threatened Joseph with a stun gun and told him he would kill him. This incident occurred right after Lori and Joseph exchanged Tylee at a mutual meeting spot in Austin, Texas. A year later, in 2008, Alex pled guilty to second-degree aggravated assault and served 3 months in jail. I apologize if you guys think I took a little bit too much time talking about Joseph, but from my understanding, I'm someone that likes to know the why behind things, to just kind of piece things together, and I thought that this was important and crucial to the story. Alex was just Lori's hitman. He, in essence, did anything Lori commanded him to do. And that was just a really weird relationship between those siblings to have, at least from my perspective. In 2006, 1 or 2 years following her divorce from Joseph, Lori married her fourth husband, Leland Charles Anthony Vallow, who everyone merely knew as Charles. So just a quick recap. Lori entered her marriage with Charles with 3 prior marriages and 2 kids. Charles entered the marriage with 2 prior marriages as well as 2 kids. Charles's kids were 2 sons, Cole, who was 9 at the time, and Zach, who was 7 at the time that he married Lori. Although Charles was raised Catholic, he was quickly enamored with Lori and all of her charms. So he quickly converted to Mormonism for her. Insert Charles's great nephew, who was born on May 25th of 2012. I'm sure you guys also know this nephew as JJ, but I just wanted to give a little bit of background on JJ's life story and the struggles that this poor baby boy faced throughout the entirety of his merely 7-year life. Charles has a sister named Kay Woodcock. Kay Woodcock has a son named Todd Tran. Todd Tran had a baby with a woman by the name of Mandy Ledger, and the pair named their baby Cannon at the time of his birth. Both Todd and Mandy suffered from severe substance abuse issues, which in turn resulted in Cannon being born with drugs in his system. Child Protective Services got involved, and originally Mandy's father and her stepmother wanted to foster Cannon, but they were ultimately denied. Then Todd's parents, Charles's sister Kay and her husband Larry, formally fostered Cannon until Lori and Charles decided to adopt him. Upon adopting him, they renamed him Joshua James, or JJ Vallow, and later discovered that JJ had autism. Also, what I found interesting, in 2023, completely unrelated to Lori and any of her crimes, JJ's birth mom, Mandy, passed away. Mandy was 46 years old at the time, and some articles say that she passed away from the heartache of losing JJ, while others say it was related to her substance abuse addiction. Either way, it doesn't appear to be any foul play in Mandy's passing. In 2015, while still married to Charles, Lori became absolutely fascinated with a series of books by an author by the name of Chad Daybell. Chad was a psychopath. Chad was described as an apocalyptic author who had visions of the future, predicted the world would end in July of 2020, and claimed to have lived multiple lives.
to that. Do the Macarena or whatever you want to do. Well, I was thinking, a lot of you probably have relatives or friends who are questioning, why would they go to a preparedness conference? There's absolutely no reason to go. Anyway, I was thinking that you probably will want to have a message prepared for when you get back to your ward tomorrow or something, when they say, well, what did you hear? What did they tell you? And so I'm going to give a statement that you can share with them. Okay? And so what I see is from Brigham City to Santaquin, it's like a special plate of land that will never be destroyed. Nothing bad will ever happen in that stretch of land, and that the people will prosper until the second coming without any trouble. So, as you know, I've had a couple near-death experiences, and I'll talk about that, and it seems like I've been waiting for 20 years for something to happen. I write all these novels, and people are like, when's it going to start, But doesn't it really feel like in the last 2 to 3 weeks that the eclipse is likely a sign of warning of what's coming? This is the Houston Temple. I've looked at other photos, and that's probably 20 feet deep from the front fountain, and just how that temple was filled with water. North Korea, they're going a little nuts right now. Kim Jong-un seems to be intent on causing havoc in the world. No question about it with him. Even as we speak, Hurricane Irma is on its way to Florida. The earthquake in Mexico, I didn't get on here because it just happened, but the fires in California and Montana, it just feels like times are starting to begin. Here's one of my favorite characters, because this is how people think I act. There's Woody Harrelson in the movie 2012, and that's how my relatives honestly think that's how I've acted the last 5 years. But he was right. No. But in reality, I loved this picture that was on the Deseret News site of President Uchtdorf down in Houston, and the great love and happiness. He kept a smile on his face. And that's the message I really want to share, is that we can prepare ourselves to survive through these trials that are coming, and that's the whole reason you're here. I know that the Spirit has guided you and prompted you, that you have a role to play.
Much like Lori, Chad was also raised in a strict Mormon household. Also like Lori, Chad was married. But unlike Lori, Chad had only been married once. He had been married for nearly 30 years to a woman by the name of Tammy Daybell. Together, the pair had 5 children. In October 2018, Lori went to a conference with a friend of hers named Melanie Gibb, and that is where she ultimately met Chad Daybell.
So here we are in St. George. I'm happy to be in St. George. I grew up in Utah County, and this was kind of our getaway place, our paradise, if you'd call it that, and hike around. I played a lot of baseball down here in the Sunshine Tournament. Would practice up in Springville in March with our fingers cracking and frozen, and then we'd come down here and play. So it was always a great time. I'm third from the right there on the back row. You can see me very well, but loved baseball, and like I say, played a lot here in the Sunshine Tournaments. So when my family decided to move from Springville about 3 years ago to Rexburg, people thought we were crazy, but I think if we had moved to St. George, no one would have argued. They would have just said, hey, yeah, I don't blame you. And just amazed at the growth that's taken place in just the past few years. Here's a picture from last year. No, just kidding. But that's about how steep the snow is sometimes in Rexburg. Last fall, it's still fall. We had a really heavy snowstorm, and my wife had bought me one of the Fitbits and told me to wear it. And I got out the snowblower and it just kept snowing and snowing, and I ended up with 20,000 steps on my Fitbit from just the snow blowing. So it's helped pin me down a little. So, for example, here's my daughter's wedding last January. Adam's kissing her and froze to her at 14 degrees. I can handle cold, honestly, but as we're standing in front of the picture and getting pictures in front of the temple, I'm like, this is nuts. So my daughter Emma got married in August when it was actually hot in Rexburg, so that was a lot better. I wanted to talk a little bit about my ties to this area. My grandpa, Guy Chestnut, grew up in what was known as Fruta, just a few miles off. It's now known as Capitol Reef National Park, and there's a little schoolhouse there that Grandpa Guy attended, and so we'd come down, and since he grew up right at the base of these cliffs, he knew where a lot of the Native American artifacts were. They were still there, and he'd take us up in these canyons, and I could feel a real spiritual sense, almost like the Native American ancestors were still there. And we've gone back since, and the government's fenced it off and taken away all the remains of the artifacts and things. But that really was a spiritual experience for me. If you do happen to go to that little school, they have a recording, and they tell the story of a boy who put a snake in the teacher's desk. And she tells the story. That was my grandpa Guy. So a little bit of a prankster. Always was. I wanted to begin with a story I haven't really told much. It's in my autobiography. When I was 13, definitely in need of braces in that picture, but soon got them later. Our Deacon's Quorum advisor encouraged us to read the Book of Mormon, and I'd never hardly cracked the book open. Sunday we were playing Nerf football in the yard and things like that. But so I did that summer before school. I read through the Book of Mormon and got to Moroni, chapter 10, and saw the promise, and our teacher talked about the promise, and I didn't really get an answer right off the bat. I put myself through a lot of trouble. I'd go out in the field in the rain, you have to sacrifice or something. I'd go kneel down in the mud and pray, and nothing would happen. Go out in the pigeon pen and pray and things like that. Just nothing really came. Finally, a voice said, just go write in your journal. And so I did. And as I began to write, the Spirit just filled my heart. And that was undeniable. I started crying, and I still have that record. I'm glad I got to write in my journal as that was occurring, because I wrote, I'm feeling the Spirit right now. And, I could not deny the Book of Mormon. I knew that it was true, and that Joseph Smith was a prophet. And so when you reach 18 years old and your doubts start coming about a mission, like they always do, the opposition, I always had that experience to fall back on. And so people think, oh, he's seen visions, and that really isn't the basis of my testimony. It's the fact that the Holy Ghost testified to me. So I talk to people who sometimes think, oh, I'm just not measuring up. But if you've had this Holy Ghost experience testify to you, you're on the right path, and you'll be led to the way you should go. I compare those of us that have visions to, sadly, kind of like to Laman and Lemuel. They had an angel appear to them, but it still didn't change their way. They needed to have the testimony of the Holy Ghost to strengthen them and to know that Jesus is the Christ. But I did when I was 17. Teeth were a little straighter by now. I'll just briefly tell about my near-death experiences. I've told them enough that I don't need a whole lot of details. But for those who haven't heard, I went on a youth activity to Flaming Gorge, Utah, in northern Utah. And my friends loved to talk me into doing stupid things. I was the younger priest in the quorum, and they knew they could usually goad me into something that I shouldn't do. And they loved to cliff jump. We didn't dive, but this certain cliffs had several levels, and we slowly worked our way up, and finally we got to one that was about 60 feet high. This isn't not me, but this is about where we were at Flaming Gorge. I found this photo, and they told me to go first. And as I stood on the edge of that cliff, I was like, this is a terrible idea. But, it impressed my peers. So I took that jump, and it just took forever to hit the water. Just 1, 2, 3, just kind of flailing. And when I hit, it was like hitting concrete. And it just felt like I broke my neck, honestly. That was my first indication. But what really happened is my body went deeper than my spirit. And so I was like 3/4 out of my body. It's like I came out through my head. And I looked around, and it was like a plane of white light. And just an amazing experience. I felt so peaceful and calm. And there were little particles of light that attached to my body, like they were just rushing at me. But within a few seconds, my body and spirit went back together. I later learned it wasn't the best fit. For 30 years, I was kind of off. So I went to a chiropractor, and he fixed me, and it felt a lot better since then. So, but a few years later, we went on a family vacation to Lagoia, California. This is Lagoia Cove. And in the center of the picture there, you can kind of see some black rocks that go out. And my brother and I went out on the very tip of that at low tide. And as the tide started to shift, as we were looking for shells and things, a gigantic wave came and just plastered me. This is the same cove, a different angle, but that's about what that wave looked like. I was out on that tip, and then just looked up, and there was this wave right there. They just call it a rogue wave. Comes out of nowhere and smashed me, and I was sure I was going to die. And I was actually right. I did die. Suddenly I got hit by the wave, but then I was just standing up found myself just upright. I was a spirit. I was in an orange room, and, well, not
Accompanying Lori and Melanie was another friend who will come back up in this story at some point, and her name was Zulema Pastenes. Just because there's so many people involved, I just want to clarify. Melanie Gibb is not to be confused with Lori's niece, Melanie Boudreaux. Because Chad wrote books like a freaking Looney Tune and all of these apocalyptic stories and how he had lived multiple lives and all of this stuff, he was able to convince Lori that the two were married in a past life, and I guess she fell for that. What's also really interesting, in a lot of the interviews that I watch of Lori, she tells people that she has loved Chad for eternities. What? Needless to say, these two goof troops start an affair. You know how you're supposed to love, respect, honor, and cherish your partner? I think that Lori kind of took that to a whole new level. Lori was just so completely enamored with Chad. It was almost as if she idolized him. She did absolutely everything he told her to do. And that would quickly become her detriment. In January of 2019, merely 3 months after Chad and Lori first met at that conference, Charles was convinced that the pair were having an affair. You know what else Charles was convinced of? That Lori would eventually take his life.
So what's going on tonight?
I can't get in touch with my kids.
How old are your kids?
6.5 and 16.
Okay. How long have you been trying?
2 days.
Okay.
But she's lost her mind. I don't know how else to say it. We're LDS. She thinks she's a resurrected being and a God, and remember the 144,000. Jesus is coming next year. She took all the money out of her bank account today. My truck had gone from the airport. She went to the airport and got it. I just flew in from Dallas. Houston and Dallas. So,
Where's your truck?
I don't know. The friend of mine's truck picked me up. I went to the CSI, filed a report, which is the community bridges or something. Filed a report.
So you did the petition?
Yeah, they ordered a pickup.
Okay. What time did you do that?
Hour and a half ago.
Okay. So what makes her a danger to herself and to others?
She threatened me, murder me, kill me.
She threatened to murder you?
Yes. And she said,
how did she do that?
My bishop right there is in the car. He was on the phone with me today when she said, I will have you destroyed. That's what she said there.
Okay, that's not a threat to kill you.
Yesterday was a threat to kill me.
Okay. What did she say yesterday?
She said, you're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my powers.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Says I'm gonna kill you too. Yesterday was
So she's speaking as a spiritual being.
She's not here. She lost her reality.
Is this just all recent, or has it been going on?
Been going on for about 4 or 5 years. It's gotten really, really bad lately. She goes to the temple every day and speaks with Moroni and Jesus Christ. And they tell her what to do. And now she came to her today, and the last couple of days she says, I'm not Charles. You're not Charles. You're Nick Schneider. I don't know where she gets his name from. She got all this stuff from these people in Utah who tell her how many past lives she's had and probation she's had. And she's was married to Moroni way back when.
So when you came back, why didn't you just go to the home?
Because she told me not to come near it. All my stuff is gone. Okay. I'm not stupid. She could have done anything.
Okay.
I thought this would be the best way to do it. With what she's gone through and what Gabe witnessed with me on the phone today, I thought it was best to have her. She's psychologically, she's gone. Something's happened to her.
How old is she?
45.
45. So if we talk to her, is she going to be able to have a rational conversation with us?
Oh, she will. I'm sure she will.
Okay.
She's just.
She'll probably tell me I'm crazy, huh? Is that what you suspect?
Okay. You're a dark spirit, but she's going to tell you.
Okay.
I'm a dark spirit. Gabe's with me. He's our bishop. He's going to be a dark spirit. Whatever that means. You're evil.
And you said this has been going on for like 4 years?
Well, it's to an extent, but it's gotten really bad the last several months. And I've been trying to ignore it because hoping it'll get better.
Is she on her medications?
No. She won't do medications.
Has she been to the doctor?
No, she won't go to the doctor because she's a translated being, and they would find out she's translated. She cannot be killed. She cannot die.
And that's what she thinks?
Yes.
Okay. Has she made any statements about wanting to hurt children or anything?
Today she said, we came on the phone, come take the kids. I don't care what happens to them. Come take them.
Okay, but she didn't make a direct threat towards you.
No, not a direct threat.
Okay. And then she said that she would murder you through a spiritual...
No, she said, I can murder you.
I can murder you. And she's talking in spirit.
I will kill you.
Spiritual.
No, she's talking physically. I will kill you because you're not Charles, and nobody will care.
Okay. So she at this point doesn't think you are her husband?
She thinks I'm Nick Schneider.
Who's Nick Schneider?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It's the name she used. I don't know where it came from.
Okay.
I'm just like, I'm as bewildered as you are. This is so foreign to me. Normal people, as far as I'm concerned, that, this happens, it just drives me, I don't know what to do. I need help, and she needs help. She needs help.
And you just didn't want to go inside because of the statements that she made?
She took my car and I suspect she took my car and my keys. I have no keys to get in.
Oh, okay.
No garage door opener.
Okay.
She knows what she's doing. She took $35,000 out of her bank account today. I can't make payroll Friday for my company. She changed our bank account numbers. I had to change it myself to get back in, and I saw the money's gone. I've got $7 in my name.
So, what's your first name again? Charles. Charles lives here with his wife and 2 children. Charles was away on business.
Nephew upstairs, his name is Zach. He's 19. He's our nephew. He can stay with us.
Have you tried to call him?
He won't call me back either.
Why won't he call you back? Okay.
That's what I'm worried about. I hope they're okay. I don't know. It's valid.
Knowing what we now know about what Lori and Chad did, I think it's really easy to look back on this police body-worn camera footage and claim inefficiency on behalf of the officers. But I'm going to play devil's advocate just a little bit, just a smidge, okay? Just a smidge. At the time that Charles reported this, unless there's information that I'm just unaware of at this time, there just wasn't an imminent threat for the police to act on. It wasn't a credible threat at that time. I think Charles eventually did apply for and receive a restraining order against Lori, but there really wasn't anything for them to do at that time. The restraining order, to my understanding, wasn't in effect. There was no violation of it. And so they did what they could. By February 2019, 1 month after the police getting called out, Lori told Charles that she no longer loved him and she no longer cared for JJ. Charles didn't want a divorce, but he felt like there was nothing left to do, so he filed for divorce that same month. Charles wrote some really astounding things in his divorce pleading that would later come into play and help him in the prosecution of her. Charles wrote that Lori told him that he was possessed by a dark spirit named Ned Schneider. Lori also told Charles that the world would come to an end, just as Chad predicted in July of 2020. Lori claimed to be a goddess who had spiritual powers, and she further told Charles that she would kill him if he got in the way of her mission. Charles feared for his life, and months before he died, thankfully, he changed the beneficiary of his $1 million life insurance policy from Lori to his sister Kay. 11 days prior to his death, Charles sent Chad's wife Tammy an email to state that Chad and Lori were engaged in an affair. It was learned that either Tammy or Chad or someone who had access to Tammy's email account quickly deleted the email and blocked Charles. On July 1st of 2019, Charles told Lori that she was planning on meeting Tammy in person to tell her about the affair. Unfortunately, Charles's life would be taken before he could do just that. 10 days later, on July 11th of 2019, Charles went to pick up JJ from Lori's house in Chandler, Arizona, and he was met with an unexpected guest. Lori's enforcer, Alex Cox, was present at the home, and he would later shoot and kill Charles and claim he did so in self-defense.
911, where is your emergency?
It's at 5531 South Four Peaks. I think it's Four Peaks Lane, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, you say you don't know the direction?
I don't know the street name, if it's a lane or court.
It's 5531 East, though?
Yeah, or South? South Four Peaks?
5531 South Four Peaks in Chandler. Is that right?
Yes.
You need
yes.
police or paramedics?
Both. I'm in police and an ambulance.
What's the emergency there?
I got in a fight with my brother-in-law and I shot him in self-defense.
Okay, let me get the medics on the phone.
Alex called the police 45 minutes after Charles was already laying dead and told them that Charles had attacked him with a baseball bat and he shot and killed him in self-defense.
Who else is in the house? No one else in the house. Okay, just have a seat right there. Yeah. Let's get FD in here. Yeah. Have a seat.
Yeah. 18th Street secure. We got the gentleman out.
You have some ID on you, sir?
Yeah.
What happened today? How did it get to this?
I don't know. He was enraged.
What's going on? What happened?
Oh, he was talking with my sister earlier.
No, what happened today, though? Like, just in the last 20 minutes.
He came at me with a bat.
Okay. Was he living here or
No.
visiting?
He came to pick up his son.
Okay, is the son inside?
No. My sister took him to school.
Okay, so it was just you at the house?
Yes.
And he came, how long, what time did he come to pick up the son?
I don't know, 20 minutes ago maybe.
Okay, so you know who he is, let him in?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think they were talking earlier, then she left, and then he got into it with me.
Like what? What do you mean?
I don't know, he was accusing me of...
Come on over here. That truck's going to be really loud. What was he accusing you of?
He was just yelling at me.
Okay. What was he yelling at you about?
About my sister because I'd broken up the tussle with them earlier. And he told me not to interfere anymore with them or I'd pay. And he came at me with a bat.
Okay, so he showed up in the house with a bat in his hand?
No.
Okay, so
There was a scuffle earlier with my sister and my niece. My niece got involved.
about earlier meaning earlier this week, earlier
No,
this morning?
this morning, before they left.
Before your wife left?
My sister.
Before your sister left?
Yeah.
Okay, who lives here with you?
Nobody. I don't live here. My sister lives here and my niece lives here.
And you're just visiting?
I was visiting for the night.
Okay, so you're over here visiting your sister and your niece.
Yes.
Okay, and there was a tussle between your sister and her husband.
Yes.
And does the husband live here or no?
No.
Okay.
He lives in Houston.
Okay, is he an ex-husband or just current husband?
They're working on that.
Gotcha. So at some point earlier today, they get into some type of domestic?
Yeah, just this morning, then they left, and then he came at me.
They left meaning who? Both of parties?
Yeah, my sister took my niece and my nephew.
Okay, so they left.
Create some space from him, and then he came at me.
Okay, but did he leave also?
No.
He stayed here?
He stayed.
So you guys are kind of talking in between or what? Who are you? Who are you?
I'm a neighbor.
No, just go back. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So it's just you and your brother-in-law?
Yes.
Okay? And kind of go through it. You
So-
say something like, hey, don't touch my sister, or...
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then he picked up the bat
Where was the bat at?
in the living room.
Okay.
The guy inside me.
No, I haven't got it. Charles is the husband of the occupants here. But I guess he lives where?
Houston.
You know his date of birth?
No.
From Houston?
Yeah.
Is this vehicle here? How did he get here?
Is it here from Texas?
No, that's my sister's car. I think he came in a rental car. I think my sister's in it.
You think your sister's in the rental car? Okay. So you get in an argument? What is it over?
Well, it was over my sister. He was getting physical with her, and so my niece came out with her bat, and then he took the bat away from her.
Wait a minute, I thought you said your niece left.
She did. This is before.
Okay. So before your sister and your niece left,
Yeah.
at some point your sister and her husband are arguing,
Yes.
verbal argument, and then your niece pulls out a bat?
Well, it wasn't verbal. He was getting close, and she came out to defend my sister with her bat.
Your niece?
Yes.
Okay.
And then she poked at him, and then he took it away.
Okay.
And then I stepped in and told them they needed to separate.
Right.
So then my sister leaves with my niece.
And how long ago did they leave? It's been like an hour, 10 minutes?
20 minutes maybe? I don't know.
Okay. So not terribly long.
No.
Oh, okay.
And then he's coming back at me, and he's still got the bat in his hand. I'm like, what are you doing?
And where are you at it? Where are you
We're
both
in the
at?
living room.
Okay.
And then I turned around, and he hit me in the back of the head with the bat. So I went to my room and got my gun. I always carry it.
You went to your room, meaning the room you're
I'm
staying in?
Yeah.
Okay, and you brought a gun with you?
Yes.
Do you always bring a gun?
I'm a concealed carry, always,
Okay.
just to be safe.
Hi, who are you? Okay, just stand over there for just a second, guys.
And then I told him to put the bat down, and he wouldn't, and he came at me
And the
again.
wife just showed up as well. So you told her to put the...
Yes.
So where are you at?
Back
Where are you at now? Or did you stay in your bedroom?
No,
Okay, why didn't you stay just in your bedroom, close the door? Is that something you didn't think about, or...
didn't even occur to me.
Okay, so walk me through it. So you go back into your room
So I just went back to the living room. Like, what is your problem?
with the gun in your hand.
Yes. And I said, I want you to put that bat down, and he wouldn't do it. And he's like, and he came at me with the bat again after he'd already hit me in the head. So I shot him to stop him.
Okay, and then what happened?
That was it.
Lori and Tylee later returned. All three parties, Lori, Tylee, and Alex, were all interviewed by police, and they were later cleared.
Okay, I know this sounds silly, but
it's probably the easiest way to start,
Mhm.
is just to tell me what happened. And then, so you can start what makes the most sense to you, and we'll just work our way through, and I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions just to kind of clarify.
Sure.
So I know you talked to the initial patrol officer.
And he just got information. He didn't say
Okay.
anything.
So yeah, if you can just kind of tell me kind of what happened. It sounds like some of this may have started last night or something along those lines. So
Right.
start where you think it makes the most sense.
Okay, so,
I told you, it's a crazy question.
Well, so we moved into this house 3 weeks ago because he offered to get me a house here where all my family is. So we
Okay.
were in Houston. And so he's like, we had decided to separate or whatever. So he's like, well, I'll pay for a house for you and for JJ and whatever, because he's all about JJ. He's never about Tylee, but he's all about JJ. Because we adopted him together. He's
Okay.
his great nephew. We adopted him as a
Okay.
baby. And so we adopted him as a baby, and so we've been raising him together. And he travels all the time for business, so he's used to just going back and forth. So he's always gone like Monday through Friday. So he came when we first moved in and brought me stuff from Houston, like a U-Haul. And then he hasn't been back. But it's all these threats on my phone all the time, you know, like whatever, all these things. And then he told me...
What kind of threats?
Just... You'd have to read them to see, but he's always mad at me, right?
Okay.
And he doesn't want a divorce, but I don't like him and don't want to deal with him, so that's just how it is. Like, so we married for 14 years, we've dealt with it for 14 years, and him being horrible to her. Like, he gets in huge fights with her, a lot of things. But anyway, so he said, I'm coming Wednesday night, all of a sudden. I want to see JJ. And I told him, I said, I will never keep JJ from you. You can come see whenever you want to. Come take him to school, whatever. Like, I'm not going to do that.
So when you initially moved, he had said he was going to buy you a house. So you moved here with your...
Yeah, he was going to rent us a house.
And so you moved...
All my family lives here. So
Right.
we lived here for a long time.
Okay.
And then he moved us to Houston.
Okay.
And we were there with my son. He was out of school. He didn't have any of his, like, services, his DVD, his anything. He, like, ripped him out of school and said, we're moving.
Okay.
And I didn't go with him at first. He took him. And I let him take him. And I didn't file anything or whatever. And then he filed something against me and said, I'm only going to get supervised visits because I'm crazy and blah, blah, blah. You know, the story. And so I just didn't talk to him for like 30 days and let him take care of him. And let him see what I've been doing for the past 7 years. Because men need to do that. You know, I have 5 kids. I have grown kids. I have grandkids. Like, okay, you're going to threaten me that you're not going to let me see my child without supervised visitation? Okay. Do it for 30 days and see how long it lasts. You've been begging me to come pick him up.
Yeah.
Which he did. It's just like, come back and whatever. So I moved in with them to Houston for the family, you know, and Tylee went with me. We drove to Houston from here and left all our family and all his support, all my son's support, like his cousins, everything. And we were there, and I enrolled him in school there. I tried to start all his services, and it takes forever.
Yeah.
You know, it takes so long to get that done.
There's no easy transferring.
There's no easy transfer.
You start from the
State to
beginning.
state, it's a totally new thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't do any of it in those 30 days. So he just had gone without services, without even applying. And I'm like, do you even realize? Because he didn't ever do it in the first place. I did it. Long story. I'll keep it short. He hasn't been here in a couple weeks since we moved in. Okay. He came. He was very nasty when he was there, but he travels for business. So he went back to the Houston house. Okay. And he's like, I'm coming on Wednesday night. And I'm going to come pick up JJ and take him to school Thursday. Pick him up Thursday, take him Friday, whatever. And I said, Casey wanted to come to the house. And I said, you can't come stay at this house because you can't get along with Tylee. She's a minor. She has to live here.
Yeah.
So, because he gets in huge fights up there.
Okay.
And she hates him. And so I'm like, you can't stay at the house, so I will book you a hotel because he stays in hotels all the time because he travels for business. And the business pays for it, right? So I said, I will book you a hotel nearby.
What does he do?
He works with teachers and their retirement plans, but he goes to them at their school. He mostly works in California. Okay. No matter where we live. And we lived in Hawaii. He'd work in California. He'd work in Texas. He has like books of business in different areas. And so he just goes wherever. Okay. It kind of just gives him freedom that he doesn't have to stay home every day and take care of special needs. Yeah. It's like an excuse, right? So I've done that myself, for the past 7 years anyway. And I was a single mom before I married him with my 2 kids.
Yeah.
And he had 2 kids. We got married, tried to make a family. You know how it goes. Anyway. So he said he was coming last night. And I said, well, you can't stay at this house because you can't get along with Tylee. And I'll get you a hotel and you can come plead with JJ. But he goes to school all day.
Yeah.
I got him back into his school. His services, I met with the DDD yesterday and they finally are getting his services back. But we're paying $125 a day to have him back in school because he's so out of his routine. He's been a nightmare on the floor, kicking stuff, hitting stuff, walls. Like, he just ripped him out of his life.
Yeah.
So, anyway, just how he is because he only thinks about himself. So. He says, coming to get JJ, and JJ's like, I don't want Dad, because he knows Dad took him away, so he was freaking out, right? So I didn't tell him he was even coming, like, Dad's going to come take you to school, I think. So he didn't bother me last night, which I was surprised. I was expecting kind of an ambush for him to kind of, like, come over or be just mean and say, it's my house, I'm on the lease, I'm going to stay here, kind of thing. So that's kind of his macho attitude. And so he came this morning. I was getting JJ ready.
So he got in last night, but he wasn't at the house last night.
Yeah, I didn't hear from him. Except for he texted me and said, I'll be there at 7:30 to pick up JJ.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. That was good, because I didn't hear from him. And then he came over in the morning and he's like banging on the door. I'm like, oh great, here we go, you know. And I was just gonna be nice. I was gonna be nice as possible, and I had JJ stuff all ready for school. So
do you remember about what time he got there?
He said he'd be there 7:30, but it was more like 7:40ish or 7:35. I don't know.
Okay.
But I remember thinking, looking at the clock, and he wasn't there at 7:30, and he's usually Mr. On time. Yes. So I was like, okay. And then JJ was like, oh, Dad. And then he was like, Mommy! And like ran to me and was like holding me. He's like, you're not taking me to school. And I was like, it's okay, Dad can just drive you to school. It's not a big deal. You know, I'm just trying to make it whatever.
Calm.
Yeah, calm.
So I know this is going to kind of sound like kind of a silly question because it's super broad. But can you basically tell me what happened today? And you can start at whatever place makes sense for you to kind of start and explain. I'll probably kind of ask you questions as we go a little bit.
Okay. So I woke up probably around like 7:50, I want to say, because I heard yelling from like right outside my door. I don't even know where, but I immediately like jumped up, and I have a baseball bat because when I was living at my uncle's by myself, I just wanted something to like feel safer, and I'm not old enough to get like pepper spray or anything, so I was like, okay, I'll get a baseball bat. So I have that.
So your bedroom, you said that right outside your bedroom door, and I didn't go in the house, so I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. So what is your bedroom door open to?
My bedroom door open, so the room that my uncle was staying in, the room that's kind of like the guest room, if my room's right here, that's right there.
Okay.
And then my little brother's room, and then kitchen's kind of back here, so it's like a little hallway, and then right here is kind of where everything happened.
Okay.
Like the big, you walk in and then...
Like big great room, kind of living room.
Yeah, right now it just has mirrors up because my mom wanted a dance room. Okay. So, yeah.
Okay.
Kind of unconventional, but...
Okay, whatever makes you happy. It's your guys' house, so...
Right. So, yeah, I immediately just jumped up and I grabbed my baseball bat and I opened the door, and it was my stepdad, you know, outside the doorway, and then my uncle kind of in the doorway, and then I could hear my mom behind him, and he was just screaming at both of them, like, I don't even know what he was saying, because honestly I was just too, like wired, I guess. So I told him to take a few steps back. I was like, you're too close, you need to step back, and he was like, don't tell me what to do, and I just kind of just stood there, and then my uncle kind of moved out of the way, and then my mom kind of went past him and into, like, the big room.
Okay.
Where everything happened, and so I walked with them, and then
So they were more in the hallway.
Yeah, they were at, like, the end of the hallway,
Okay.
basically. And so my mom walked all the way around, and he kind of followed them, and I just kind of stood. My uncle was, like, right here, and then my stepdad right here, and then me and my mom were kind of right here. And I didn't do anything with the baseball bat, I kind of just held it there, and he was getting really close to my mom, so I kind of stuck it out, like, between them, and they were both just yelling, and he was like, if you hit me with that baseball bat, you're gonna go to jail. And I just kind of stood there with the baseball bat, and I didn't really say anything.
When you said they were yelling, who was yelling?
It was mostly my stepdad.
Okay.
Well, he was really the only one, like, yelling.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was kind of, like, responding,
Mm-hmm.
but I honestly couldn't tell you what they were saying. It was kind of just, like, all jumbled up in my head. And so I just kind of stuck the baseball bat out there, and then he just grabbed it and tried to take it. So I held on to the end, and then eventually I fell, and he kind of took it into his hands like he was going to do something with it. And that's when...
So when you fell, he ended up with the bat?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I fell to the ground, and then my uncle kind of, like, I saw him take a step back, so my uncle, I think, grabbed him and kind of took him back so he couldn't, like, do anything.
You saw your stepdad, like, take a step back?
Take a step back, because he was really close
Okay.
to begin with, and then and so my mom said to go with JJ, and so I ran out the door, and then I kind of just stood there with my little brother. He was in the front seat of the car, and so I just kind of opened the door and just stood there, and, like, he was trying to get out, and I was like, no, we have to stay. We have to stay in. And I was like, oh, like, I told him, like, do you want to go in the Jeep? And then he was like, no, and then I realized that my car was blocked in, so I couldn't anyways. I was like, okay, like, just stay here. And then eventually my mom came out,
Mm-hmm.
and then we left from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened inside of the house? Has your mom kind of explained it all to you?
I just kind of asked her, like, because I heard a noise,
Mm-hmm.
which I know what it was now, but it sounded like, because I knew that the baseball bat was in there, it sounded like someone, like, took it and hit it really hard against the floor.
Okay.
And so I was kind of like, Al's okay, right? Because that's my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to make sure that, like, my stepdad didn't do anything to my uncle and stuff. And so she was like, no, like, Al's fine. Like, we're just going to take JJ to school. And I was like, okay. So I just got in the car, and then we went to Burger King because my little brother wanted breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
which was chicken fries for no reason.
Okay. I do dinner for breakfast all the time.
Breakfast for dinner and dinner for breakfast.
Mm-hmm. So to kind of back up a little bit, so you had talked about your stepdad, when you put the bat out, your stepdad was coming towards your mom.
Mm.
Can you describe to me a little bit better kind of what was going on there? Like, is there a reason you put the bat up?
Yeah, he was walking towards my mom, and I just didn't want him to do anything, so I kind of just stuck out the bat. Like, my mom was right beside me, and he was right there, so it wasn't, like, between them.
Okay.
It was kind of just, like, I just stuck it out to be, like, keep your distance, kind of.
When you say you didn't want him to do anything, what did you think he was going to do?
Hit her.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, for the most part, been pretty, like, mundane, but there have been a few, like, violent times with him when I was really scared that he was gonna hit me or hit my mom, like, just because everything was kind of crazy. Me and him have always kind of not gotten along, like, just since I was little, and so there have been a few times that we've gotten in fights and stuff like that, and so, so I'm just kind of always scared of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have very little understanding or knowledge of what happened. Patrol kind of, Rob, or the officer that talked to you out there, it kind of turns into the phone game. So, you know what I mean? When they go, yeah, this is what he says, but they're kind of rambling through it real fast. And same with your sister. Your sister's name is Lori or Lauren?
Lori.
Lori. Lori? Okay. So, the big thing I want to do is just make sure that we have all the details accurate and factual. Because kind of some of the information we got from Patrol didn't really match up what Lori told us compared to. So walk me through what happened today.
Well, I stayed the night at my sister's.
Okay.
We were planning to go do something fun day. We hadn't really decided. I was thinking maybe I was going to take her to the range.
Okay.
Or go do something.
Okay.
I don't know, take JD to some water park or movies or whatever. I stayed stayed there last night, and this morning Charles showed up. And I don't know what started it.
And Charles is your brother-in-law. He and Lori are married.
Yes.
Okay.
So he showed up. He was following her and yelling. And then I got between them. And then Tylee came out with her bat. And I had separated for a minute. And then my sister walked around me there in the living room. And then Charles was following Lori and yelling. And Tylee told him to get back. She took her bat like that and shoved him, and he took the bat away. And I said, "What are you doing?" And I got between them, and then he hit me. And I just went down, and when I got up, he was still yelling. And so I went into the bedroom where I was staying and grabbed my gun, and I came back.
Okay.
And told him to put the gun down, or the bat down. And he came to me and was saying, "What are you gonna do?" Like that, and come to me with the bat. I said, "Put it down." He wouldn't. He came at me, so.
Okay. So when that argument first started between Lori and Charles, where in the house were they?
I don't know.
Okay. Where did you first?
I was in my bedroom.
Okay, so you were in your bedroom, and you heard the argument.
When they came right towards me.
Okay, so they were coming down the hallway towards the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay, so you hear the argument, you step out, what's the first thing that you see?
Charles chasing after Lori and yelling.
Okay. Had Tylee already gotten the bat? Did he already have the bat? Okay.
No.
So Charles is coming towards Lori.
He's coming
your
towards
way.
Lori, and I shoved him back.
Okay.
And I said, "What are you doing?" Because he's coming at her aggressively.
Okay.
He's a big dude, so he's not gonna hurt my sister.
Okay. So he's coming at her.
Yeah.
And you shoved him back.
Yeah.
What happened right after that?
And
that's I'm sorry to interrupt you.
He got back up and he comes right to me, doesn't look at me, and continues to yell at Lori.
Okay.
So he's maybe this far away.
Are you in the hallway of the house, or where are you?
Right close to the doorway of that bedroom.
Of the bedroom you were staying?
Yes.
Okay. So you're right near the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay.
So then, I don't remember why, he backed up, and then my sister came around behind me, and they ended up in the living room, and then while they were on the way to the living room, Tylee comes out of her bedroom, which is adjacent to the one I was staying in.
Okay.
With her bat.
Okay.
Yelling at Charles. Actually, she was behind Charles at first, and then she cut around in front of him in the living room.
Okay. So they went back towards the living room?
Yes.
After you shoved him. Did he fall to the ground when you shoved him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so he falls to the ground, he gets back up, you're blocking between him and Lori.
Yes.
And he basically is talking past you, still yelling at Lori.
Yes, exactly.
What's he saying?
I don't remember.
Okay. So, as you're standing there between them, what happened right after that? Is that when Tylee came out with her bat?
No, he backed up.
Okay.
He yelled something, and then he backed up. And then Lori went by me and around me in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
So he backed up, I had cleared the doorway. So then she came around, and then Charles was behind her, pursuing her again aggressively.
Okay.
Tylee came out, yelled at him with the bat.
Okay. And are you guys in the living room then, or still in the hallway?
It starts in the hallway and then goes to the living room.
Okay.
So Tylee gets around him in the living room, he stops. Tylee goes around to the front of him, tells him to back off.
What I find it easiest to do in situations like this is to kind of draw like a rough floor plan.
Sure. So we'll make this the living room. All right, and then this is the hallway.
Okay.
And then this is the kitchen. So Tylee's bedroom is here, my bedroom is here, and then the living room is here.
Okay, we just put living room on there so I know, and then you said that's kitchen.
Yeah.
And then
so the doorway's here.
Okay. Is this area of the house where all of this incident was focused at? Okay.
Yeah. And then there's another bedroom here. This is JJ's bedroom.
Okay. So do you first get involved when they're down by your room?
They come all the way into she comes in the room, he comes right here, and I stopped him right here.
Okay, so she came into your room.
Yeah.
Okay. So she comes into your room, he's coming at her aggressively, and that's when you pushed him.
Yep.
So you push him down.
Yep.
And then he gets back up.
Yep.
And
then he yells, and then he backs up.
Okay.
And then Lori Lori goes around me, goes around him. And they're still going at it.
Okay.
Right? And then Tylee comes out when she hears what's going on. She has her bat.
Okay. Is it a metal bat?
Yeah, it's
plastic
a
bat.
aluminum bat.
Okay.
So she comes at him because she's tiny, so that's like her thing. You know, she doesn't have anything, but she wants to help defend her mom.
Okay.
So she comes at him, and then when
they've already moved back towards the living
so they're
room.
going this way.
Okay.
So Lori's here, Tylee's here, Charles is here. I'm here. Tylee goes at him with the bat. Then he takes the bat away from her, and I step towards him, and he turned around and cracked me.
Is that the injury that's caused on your head? Okay.
Well, there was some shoving first, and I got spun around.
Okay.
And then popped. So I go back here, grab my gun, and come back out. He's still yelling and threatening me.
Okay.
And then, so I was standing here, and he was there.
Okay. So you're standing right there. He's right here.
He's there.
And you said, what happened? What happened when you came out with the gun?
I said, put that bat down. And he's like, what are you going to do? So you're going to threaten me? I was like, no, I'm just going to defend myself. So you put that bat down. And he goes, what are you going to do like that? And he came at me.
Okay.
And he'd already hit me in the head.
Let's go back and talk about this a little bit more. In order for someone to be cleared from a murder investigation based on self-defense, there has to be a lot of police investigation that goes into it. In the jurisdiction that I'm licensed to practice in, much like in Chandler, Arizona, they would then go and bring the person for a formal police interview, do their due diligence, determine whether or not they think this was a credible self-defense claim, most likely speak to the prosecution, and then determine whether or not arrests are to be made. Again, I think that this is a situation that when we're looking back on it, knowing what we know now, is absolutely disheartening. Again, I'm not licensed in Chandler, Arizona, but according to policy and procedure, as I'm aware of it, the police might have actually done their job here. Okay, you guys. So as I stated at the beginning, Lori's story is absolutely interesting. There's just so much to unpack here. There's so many details, so much background information, just so much information to digest that I want to make sure and do this story justice. I'm going to cut the video right here. Next week, we'll discuss the second part of Lori Daybell's story. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, y'all take care.